Welcome to today's show. We're at part 2 of the Qabala Capstone Capture Project, a total takeover of all mentalities on August 3rd, 2026.
So before we start the part 2 conversation between Dig and Bill, a couple divine coincidences to point out. Today is 3.8 in the east and 8.3 in the west, which is HC or CH in letters. CH is the chop or the spread from the central point, the child, the chi, the key, the center part of the K, which is where ice and fire meet, the mystery that can't be defined but is known in all things. So HC is the human condition, and in our modern world, it's Hotel California, the Mortal Kombat continuum, where we can check out, but we can never leave. So the two characters we're going to interject into with during their conversation are named Dig, D-I-G, and William. Dig is a reduced to DG word, because you remove the vowel. So it's 47 in digits, the opposite or inversion of GD, for God. And William is the lower figure in this conversation, and his name is an acronym for Will I Am, which shows the partnership between the essence of a human being and the creator of all things. So let's go ahead and start the conversation. So I have an introduction before we do the combo between Dig and William. So the title of this show is the Qabala Capstone Capture Project. The Qabala is the gang. The capstone is the human head, the brain, our sensual awareness, and our capacity to make realities based on our focus. The Biome Menace is a game plan or blueprint of AI, which is also an eye, a single eye, a one eye. It's also the nanotech that exists in our devices, our foods, medicines, injections, substances, even the air and water now. And it attaches itself, the Biome Menace, to the essence points of all living things, with specific agendas against the natural design woman or man. It's a gang of thieves, of emotionless humans, and foreign entities from the outer realms of the spiritual record of creation. However, each woman or man is born from perfection and is a complete and full reduction and aggregation of the entirety of creation and the power to deploy it.
Before we get to the convo, that's a very interesting image we're looking at. What does it mean?
Well, the central figure is a labyrinth or concentric circle maze. It's a maze. So a maze is where you live, and where it came from is the central point. You notice at the top there's one central facing head and two background heads. That represents the triune energetic format of nature, of the feminine force, the masculine force, and the driver, the mediator, the neutral multiplier born to every newborn child. So this is what we're looking at. And now we'll move on to the combo.
We're going to start with William, who said, "You told us we are 1 year away from something. Remind everyone." And Dig said, "AI video that can perfectly replicate anything. We are about 1 year away. For example, they are going to be able to recreate a film, any film, let us say Jurassic Park, and create a new script. And it will look just like the original with minor changes. This will be done for every film, eventually, for everything in existence. People will be fascinated by it too." William said, "I'm adding this to my notes to follow up on later, maybe a future intel drop. Now I've heard people claiming AI or extensive use of it is making people dumber, actually reversing cognitive ability. Is that true?" And Dig said, "Yes, it has an impact on the brain. whereby the brain stops exercising certain synapses. If you rely on AI to think, you stop thinking. This is real. The Cabal knows this, and tied with the nanotech, we are looking at a very, very different future for humanity. People will still function and operate and even be high functioning, but they will be more operating on rails on a set path. The life scripting comes into play, and I've spoken before that free will is impacted, so is the soul.
You see, in order to keep you satisfied for thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of years, you will have to ride the rails of a life script that's provided for you. It's similar to the chicken coop life you have now, but pretty much a complete takeover of every direction of your focus. What we're looking at is an extension or progression from the lemming mindset of today to a captured into perpetuity mindset, to be associated to biohacking the physical anatomy to prevent it from dying. Let's get back to the combo.
So William said, well, I don't use it much, just a little. What's your advice for people's use of it? And Dig said, I would treat it as a search engine. It can be used for basic things. It has some worthy uses. It can streamline productivity. I think if people follow the advice I have given, they will be safe. The versions that are not censored, that run from a local computer, can be used against the Cabal. The Cabal knows this. That is why the nanotech is so important to them. Let us say a person who is skilled in AI has set up the ideal offline AI complement, a computer, a GPU, a powerful open source AI. But if that person is activated, they will not even have the willpower to do that, or desire, or inclination at all. They will do something else, something harmless to the Cabal.
So, to interject, we believe the power of all unknown unknowns lays in the essence point occupied by every owner of a lonely heart. That would be you and me and every woman and man. And when we recognize it, it can be activated to provide divine providence and protection. Let's get back to the combo.
And William said, how do people actually fight this? And Dig said, it is very simple. And my guide said this to me, awareness. Awareness is the first step. That is part of what we are trying to do. We are essentially the only group publicly exposing this right now.
Now, of course, common sense says that no problem can be addressed until it's identified, and no course can be plotted until you know where you're starting from. And the truth about the groups is there are countless groups that are fighting this. The last statement was packed with some fatalism and narcissism, but this is common in the human condition. Let's get back to the convo.
William said, I want to ask about obsidian and life scripting. This is very high concept. It's an evolution of obsidian, is that right? And Dig said, it's an extraordinary advancement in the concept of social scoring. We look at China and it is very straightforward. They monitor you, they have an app, a phone, you are surveyed, your behaviors are logged, you are punished for poor behavior. This was the obsidian model to be streamlined for the West. What emerged is a new concept that is life scripting. With the nanotech and obsidian's enormous existing database, the Cabal simply knows everything about you. You are already cataloged. William said, explain how free will and the soul are under threat from this. I know we've talked about this, but it's worth revisiting from time to time. And Dig said, the Cabal has a long-term plan here to capture the soul in various ways. Electromagnetically with the nanotech, through choices people make, and which then hands over their free will to the Cabal, and even more forceful measures such as capturing the actual soul upon death and preventing it from leaving this dimension. And William responded, a lot of people can't accept that. Please explain how God would even allow that, or how it doesn't violate universal law. And Dig said, because God is giving everyone a choice. The COVID vaccines were the first test. Nanotech is more secret. But my guide said we are now play a role in making people more aware of the nanotech. If our plans with nanotechrollout.org actually come to fruition, a lot more will be aware of it. That does not mean they will accept it, but they will be made aware. God wants us to receive the information. Then we make the choice. And William said, there's still time then? There has to be some time. And Dig said, there is. I think there is a divine plan in everything. I have a suspicion those being activated now may have already been given some information, but they rejected it. I do not know, but I suspect it.
Well, I would like to add to that natural order is inescapable, and it always arrives at even Steven, or equilibrium, or balance, or parity. You always receive what you bought, and whatever you give out is what returns that you must take. Use the website below to find info on the deployment and nanotech across all the different sciences and approved, accredited researchers. Back to the combo.
And William said, thank you for explaining. I see it as this overall weird anxiety people have to take action, resistance to understand the threat, our mission. It just goes back to the fact some people just flat out refuse the information. They refuse it. And Dig responded, there's nothing we can do about that, Bill. That is not our job. Ultimately, we are here to provide the information. That is why I directed nanotechrollout.org not to force the information, but instead allow people the option to decide. We also provided an article that is very neutral, if not skeptical leaning. And William said, yes, Nanotech Research Brief. I've read it. I was surprised by the amount of outside sources confirming so much. There's a lot. And Dig said, there is. The Cabal has been experimenting with nanotech for decades. The COVID shots were the first test conduit for their latest technology. Once it was seen working, they put out other versions in the food supply.
There's more to read in the link below, but to interject on the previous statements, discernment means you're finding the center point between the two contentions and allowing for all three to exist, and realizing that you're the boss and the mediator. Discernment, living guides, and your personal intimate relationships with your mate and close ones is your key to finding your essence power to overcome this challenge and win this game. Let's go back to the combo.
And Dig said, imagine for a moment there is an advanced AI creating conspiracies, rabbit holes to nowhere, for the purpose of distracting truth seekers. Would the Charlie Kirk incident not perfectly fit into such an agenda at this point? William said it certainly would. A year later, it seems like no one knows a damn thing, just that maybe Israel did it. Endless red herrings and questions.
The simple path to overcome is to find ownership of the following truth. All events of creation, including your story, aggregate to this moment. The axis of creation is embedded as a fragment in each natural design, human, woman, or man. Our source is simple and eternal. Our record and evolutions are complex and temporary. Each of us owns both. Let's go back to the combo.
And Dig said, the problem is people want the truth served to them on a silver platter. Truth is rewarded to those who diligently seek it beyond the obvious layers. William said, I'm going to end with an interesting question. What do you say to people who might say you're wrong to use AI at all? And Dig said, very good question. If you go back to early Intel drops where we discussed AI before it was becoming mainstream, or just as it was emerging, I did say it had practical uses. I had the clear distinction that the Cabal is inserting into it their own interdimensional technology to co-opt it. My position has not drastically changed. William said, are you going to do a separate team drop on our password page? And Dig said, we will do an update on the team page with some things, but this drop I'm intending for the public and for our team together. We have a window of time here, but the window will close at some point when full activation becomes a reality. We need a community too, essentially. Do checkups on each of us, because if someone does become activated, having a community is a very important early step to thwarting its effects and giving a person a fighting chance. My guide implored me on this. I was never in favor of us giving the Cabal a reason to come after us, but on this matter, exposing the nanotech is a directive we must follow through on. We cannot hide and do nothing. William said, I'm worried for the day full activation becomes a reality. We'll talk about it more. I think we need to. Dig said, we will. And William said, how close are we to the antidote being released? And Dig said, all information indicates within 6 months.
Well, I guess that would be 2027. So to end the show, we have now, and now is all we'll ever have. And now is actually timeless. Any changes that you make today, even offering yourself the potential of change, is a change, and it will manifest in your reality tomorrow. Whatever you focus on is what will appear and what you will become. Choose wisely.